me. And the economic program worked, so we had the biggest job growth in American history. But again, to me, the most important thing, because we were Democrats and we want everybody to have equal opportunity, while there were 50% more jobs created in the private sector in our 8 years than in the Reagan years, and worlds more than in the other Republican administrations since 1980. Listen to this, 50% more jobs, 100 times as many people moved from poverty into the middle class. Those are the consequences of ideas. We had 8 years of declining crime for the first time in American history, partly because we put over 100,000 police on the street. And there were lots and lots of other ideas. And then there were the things that Dick did at the Education Department, and I'll just mention a few. He's doing research now in his post-government life about what works to make our schools work. We had a 90% increase in the number of kids in Head Start, and we started to have a real movement toward national standards in our schools, and Dick started a program to identify schools that weren't succeeding and to turn them around or put them under new leadership. We didn't support school vouchers, but we supported charter schools within the public school system. To be more creative, there was one in the whole country when we started, and we had funded over 2,000 when we left, and there are more now. We supported the idea that teachers should be encouraged to improve their skills, and we supported our friend, former Governor Hunt from North Carolina, in the Master Teacher Program, and urged people to have a master teacher in every school and to pay them appropriately so everybody would want to continue to upgrade their skills, not only their academic achievement, but their work in the classroom. We started funding after-school programs for the first time because of the overwhelming evidence that they work, that young people need to spend more time on task. We were funding zero after-school programs when we started. When we left, we had provided fundings for $1.3 million in our last budget. As we walked out the door, would have doubled that, thanks to Dick Riley. And that was an astonishing thing. We worried in the 90s about something that's been even more severe in this decade, which was the escalating cost of higher education. And when we left, there were more than 13 million more young people getting various kinds of college aid than before. We more than doubled the amount of funding being devoted to this for a simple reason. In the 1990 census, we learned that every high school graduate that has 2 or more years of college has a better than 50% chance of getting a job with a rising income, and every young person that has less than that has a less than 50% chance. And so we ratcheted that up. And Dick implemented something called the Direct Student Loan Program, which basically had the government funding these loans direct if universities wanted it, and gave the students the option of paying the loans back as a percentage of their income. Now, this was a huge deal, because a lot of young people wanted to be teachers or nurses or police officers or do something else in the public service area where they knew they would never make a lot of money, and they literally couldn't afford to do it because the size of their student loans were so great. So we said, okay, we will cut the cost of the loans and give you the option of paying it back as a percentage of your income. Guess what happened? The program saved students about $9 billion in loan repayment costs, an average of about $1,000 on every $10,000 that had to be repaid. But it saved the government, the taxpayers, you, $4 billion. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? You know why? Nobody had to default anymore. Everybody started paying their loans back. He did that. He did that. But the thing I'd like to really focus on tonight on education is just to say that Dick Riley had a child-centered education philosophy. It had nothing, he had a philosophy, and he didn't have an ideology. And as we have seen these last several years, Nothing will get you in trouble quicker in a democratic political system than having an ideology instead of a philosophy, whether it's too far to the right or too far to the left. Because if you've got an ideology, that means you've got the answer already and you're impervious to the evidence. And, you know, South Carolina's most prominent living political philosopher, Stephen Colbert, had a great line on his show the other night. He was describing decision-making in Washington. He said, you know, the average person all over the world makes decisions based on facts. They make facts based on decisions. Dick Riley never made facts based on decisions. So we know that, for example, if we had universal preschool for low-income kids, they'd go to school better prepared to learn. We know that if you have smaller classes and better prepared teachers, and if you pay them better, they do a better job. We know if principals have the ability to create a definite school culture where there are high expectations and the support necessary, then all kids will do better without regard to race or income. We know what works based on the evidence. And I think we know now enough to know that by and large, Leave No Child Behind doesn't work. And I think that, but there's a reason why. I think it was really well motivated in the beginning. I don't think this was an ideological thing. They said we need more accountability. We weren't against that. We tried to develop a national, meaningful fourth grade test in reading and an eighth grade test in math. We weren't against some tests, but this requires 5 years of tests back to back. And then we say to the schools, we're going to give you money based on how your kids do on the tests. Then we give a big old wink to the states and say, but guess what? Don't sweat it. You get to pick the test and the passing score. I mean, this is the worst of all worlds. So if South Carolina says, man, we're going for the gold, we don't even want to lead the nation, we want an internationally competitive system of education, then you're going to get burned because you'll bid a big test with a high score and you'll have more failures. If you take a dive and you get an easy test with a low score, you get your check next year. How crazy is that? What is the real issue here? We know what makes for effective schools. And Dick, and as I said, our neighbor to the north, Jim Hunt, sort of pioneered this idea of turning around schools that were troubled. I think, and a certain candidate for president I know thinks, that it would be better if we, wait a minute, this is serious, better if we pick 20 high schools, 20 middle schools, and 20 elementary schools all across America reflecting the racial, ethnic, and income diversity of this country who have succeeded by every standard, and find out what they have in common and fund that everywhere. That's a lot better, I think, than Leave No Child Behind. I'll just give you an example. You know, my office is in Harlem, and I have my foundation office. There's a public high school. It's not even a charter school, the Frederick Douglass Academy. You do have to ask to be admitted, but there's no income threshold, there's no grade threshold. All you got to do is agree to abide by the code of conduct. And you got to ask to be in it, named after the great abolitionist Frederick Douglass. Now, this school is 100% African American and Hispanic. Well over 50% of its students are below the poverty line. 98% of them graduate from high school on time. Oh, wait, it gets better. For decades, New York has had a Regents exam that you have to take and pass to get your diploma. Their pass rate is not above New York City's average, it's above the New York State average. It gets better. 92% of the graduates go on to college. This is the most unbelievable statistic of all. 90% of them get their degrees on time. Now, I won't bore you with all the reasons why this is true, but suffice it to say that they have a culture. I've been there. I've watched it. Every child that walks through that door believes that he or she can learn whatever they need to know to excel in the modern world. And they are given whatever support is required to do it. Teachers are breaking down the door to teach there because they want to be part of something good. Nobody wants to fail in life.